Hey traders, welcome back to the FXE YouTube channel. Hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend so far and getting some well-deserved rest. So last week, CPI gave us some really interesting price action. EU broke to the upside, but then after we had a significant pullback. Let's have a look at the charts and try to understand what to expect next. But before getting to the charts, just want to give a really quick update on funded next. So still quite happy with the spreads that I'm seeing trading with funded next. The spread hours have normalized and I'm now seeing something a little more typical around 3.5 pips. But hopefully I can finish the challenge this week and give some more feedback on how the next steps go. And as I mentioned before, if you guys are interested to support me, I have put my affiliate links to all the prop firms and brokers that I'm currently using in the description below. So getting back on topic, let's start with the fundamentals. So on Wednesday, we have retail sales, and then later on, we have FOMC. And then on Thursday, we have CPI for Euro. So for FOMC, we can expect some volatility to come into the markets, and potentially, causing a change in trend for the rest of the week. So moving to Dixie. So as this is my weekly analysis, starting with the monthly time frame. Not really so much that's visible on the monthly time frame. Last month we had that candle to the upside with a massive wick pushing the price back down. And so far this month we've created a doji. So the doji suggests that there's currently some indecision in the market, which way price wants to go. And if we look on the weekly time frame, so we can see that we've pulled back into weekly demand, but we actually reacted quite strongly off of it. You can see that with the week, but for now it looks like it's just a reaction, and we may come down a little further. Now if we go to the daily, so the daily is where things start to get a little interesting. So previous to last week's analysis, EU gave the impression after a strong reaction and manipulation from demand, that, okay, so let me just expand this a little. So we had the manipulation and the reaction of demand that more or less immediately pushed back into supply, giving the impression that it wanted to push higher. But then last week, what happened is we came down, we retested demand again, pushed up even further, but then after that saw no continuation. We started to pull back, and then started to push down a little further, and then when CPI came around, price just plummeted. It actually came below the previous demand that we struggled to break. It didn't close below. It had a strong reaction off of it, but then the day after we came back down, retested it, but then after that started to push away from demand. So we can see after this push down, we've already pulled back 50% of the last push down. And there is a chance that you could reverse anytime now and continue to the downside. Now if we go to the 4 hour, so this is where things start to make a little more sense. We can see that price shifted bullish over here and started to break to the upside. But when price came into supply, it immediately rejected off of it, started to push down, had some consolidation, then pushed down even further, consolidated again, creating an order block, and just melting to the downside after CPI, coming all the way down here. At least on this time frame, there was some manipulation, so you can see some manipulation candles, and then after that the price melting to the downside. So you can clearly see the institutions were involved in this move. So we came all the way down, let me just zoom out a little, into a lower demand zone here. You can see that EU took the liquidity from the previous low that was created. It also broke this entire demand zone that created the previous expansion to the upside. And we broke this low as well, but ultimately what happened is we came into this manipulation candle that was created and saw a reaction of that. And then what you can see after is that price pulled away and then came down for a retest. But what didn't make sense is by this time we're in Thursday, we had the PPI and unemployment news, which was unfavorable for the dollar. It would have made more sense for price to just continue down. But if you look closely, we did have a manipulation candle here, and price reacted off that, so it mitigated that manipulation candle, and then after that had an even stronger push to the upside. So in terms of bias and expectation, looking at the higher time frame, structure is telling me that price could reverse and start pushing up to attack the highs again. The daily is telling me that we could see a further push to the downside. And when I look at what happened on the 4 hour, it would also make more sense for price to go up and test supply and then come crashing back down. This seems like the most obvious scenario when looking how price action has played out up to now. But one thing to consider is that that last push down failed to break to the downside. Even with the unfavorable news for the dollar, that should have made dollar weaker. It would have made sense for the price to break this low and continue further to the downside. We do have that manipulation candle that you cleanly mitigated. Maybe this clean buy setup is just to push the price back to supply and reverse from there. But at the same time, I do consider the possibility that this could be the start of a bigger move. For now, short-term bullish, but eventually bearish. As Dixie pushes up, we need to see how it reacts at the supply, when and if it ever makes it there. This is mainly to confirm if we can anticipate any surprises or not. keeping in mind the possibility of seeing price pushing up higher if it breaks through the supply and then continues to start breaking structure to the upside again. Okay, so that's it for Dixie. Let me move on to EU. So for EU, starting on the monthly time frame, not really so much that's obvious here. Structure is still bearish. Last month we pushed down into demand, pulled away a little, and then starting to see a little continuation on this month's candle. We've created an inside bar so far this month, but we do still have 2 weeks before the monthly candle closes, so I mean literally anything can happen. If we go to the weekly, so on the weekly, structure is still bearish. We're still creating lower lows and lower highs. After reacting off the demand, we started to push a little higher. It appears that order flow is starting to shift bullish. But then what happened is, you can see we filled the weekly imbalance, and then we rejected off this 4-hour supply range. You'll see it better on the 4-hour chart. And it's a little too early to say what will happen next from this time frame, but I can see reasons for price going either way next week on this particular time frame. Now if we go on the daily time frame, so again, structure is still bearish. I was expecting price to start pushing down last week. So last week we had that manipulation candle on the 2nd. It gave the impression that price would have a pullback to test supply, as it did, and then continue further to the downside. But as you can see, it started to push away from the demand, and then it started to continue to push higher. And then Wednesday came around. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, I remember. Then on Wednesday, we had that the CPI news, and then the explosion to the upside. And this is where we tapped into the supply range. So you can see the supply range that we had over here. And we also cleared the weekly imbalance, as I mentioned before. And then we started to show some reaction off of it. You can see that with the wick. But then on Thursday, yeah, Thursday, right? So even though we pushed away, we mitigated the highs, but I feel we should have broken the highs based on the news results that we got from PPI and unemployment. But for now, on this particular time frame, we don't see any manipulation candle that was created for any signs of a bigger push to the downside. So potentially prices comes down back into daily demand, which we actually have already done, and then starts to reverse and then smash through the highs from here. Now if we go to the 4-hour time frame, so you can see on this time frame, structure has shifted bullish from way back down here, creating higher highs and then higher lows. and then once again confirm after CPI with that higher high. Price did clear that weekly imbalance, as I mentioned, as well as tapping into the supply range. But since then has started to pull back. And if we go a little deeper on what price action has shown us, you can clearly see way back from the NFP candle. So when we pushed off from demand, you can see that we created a manipulation candle. So institutions started to get involved here. And then later on Tuesday, we had another manipulation candle created, further pushing price to the upside. For now, not breaking anything, reacting off supply, coming back down, and then after that, we created another manipulation candle, and then thereafter, we had CPI. Which exploded the price to the upside. But like I said, after that, we pulled back. We created one more manipulation candle here off this pullback. And then retested the highs. So we never broke it, as I mentioned before, even with the favorable news. And then what followed next is we created a manipulation candle here. We started to push a move to the downside. We had a little consolidation, and then we had a second manipulation candle that triggered continuation to the downside. So what we can see on the left is we've taken most of the imbalance that was creating during the CPI candle. In terms of my bias and expectation now, it's clear that the institutions have been involved in pushing the price up. And then the subsequent push down after. Although the higher time frames are bearish, as of right now at least, I don't see anything too significant on the 4-hour telling me that price is going to realign with the higher time frames. So what makes the most sense for me as of right now is for price to pull back, maybe continue a little further to the upside. We've already come down, 50% of the last push up. We could come down a little deeper into demand before pushing up. So what we could see here is rather than pushing up from here, we come back down further into this demand level. And if we make it down to this demand level, will already be at the 618 fib retracement. And if we happen to go even lower, then this will be around the 70% pullback. Yeah. And from these points, I mean, either of these demand zones, if we start to see a shift, I will definitely look for longs to take the price back up to the upside. But, and there is a but, there's a few things I don't like when I look at what happened with the price action. So I don't like how price rejected after filling the weekly imbalance and tapped into that supply range. I also don't like the fact that price didn't clear this CPI high when all the signs for a bigger move to the upside were there. And then the manipulation candles that were created, pushing price back down. I mean, I could also see an alternative scenario where we start to see the beginning of a reversal starting. So in this scenario, I could see the price essentially just reversing and pushing back down to attack the lows again. But obviously for now the scenario is much less likely. But at the same time, I can easily see it play out. Well, anyways, I think that more or less sums up what I'm seeing, at least for now, with this week's analysis. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this weekly analysis, and as always, I'm curious to know your thoughts on what your expectation for price action is next week, and if you can do that by leaving a comment below. And if you found value in this video, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss any future videos. And enjoy the rest of the weekend. And I'll speak to you guys again on Tuesday. Peace.
Hey, you made it to the very end. Thanks for that. If you could do me one more favor and click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, it'll allow the YouTube algos to kick in and help this channel grow. Thanks again. Cheers.